This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Would you consider Shikara your first big break?
No, Chikara was IWA Mid-South, actually. So
Okay.
around 2008, around the same time that I got the opportunity with Booker's place, Ian Rodden from IWA Mid-South held a tryout. Myself and a couple of the local guys from my school went there. I think it was like a $20 entry fee. So we did that. And I was one of the guys that was brought back. And because of that, I got an opportunity to wrestle with Seth Rollins, I think like a 3-match series, Jimmy Jacobs, and Colt Cabana. And it's really interesting because in about 3 years after that, those relationships that I had built off of those matches kind of helped me, get my foot in the door at Ring of Honor around 2011, I believe. So that was actually my like coming out party, I guess, is wrestling for IWA Mid-South.
Well, you mentioned Booker T a couple of times. You worked for his company off and on. What were you able to learn from Booker? He's a great teacher.
Yeah. And more so, it wasn't in-ring stuff. It was basically coming from the independents, you really have the sense of like, well, at least me anyway, everything in wrestling is given. A lot of people like to say you earned it or whatever, but in reality, the bookers and different people like that pretty much give you everything you have. You can work hard for it, but at the end of the day, everything is given to you. So something that Booker did was he was the first company that flew me out. And he kind of taught me at an early age in wrestling that like you have to ask for what you want. It was always waiting to
speak up, per se.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think the first trip I had for him, I was on Greyhound from Atlanta to Houston, was 24 hours on a Greyhound. Yeah, and unfortunately for me, I was seated right next to the bathroom, and there was a revolving door, of course, and also the door was broken, so it kept swinging open. So I was positioned in the back of the Greyhound with my foot wedged up against the door to keep it closed for most of the trip. So on the next trip that he invited me back, I kind of like explained it to him, and he kind of broke it down and told me, if these are the things you want, you got to speak up. And I really appreciate him having that conversation with me, because that kind of helped me later on in my career just to kind of come out of my shell, because I was a very shy individual, I guess, coming up.
Better communication, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Man, that's awesome. And what a mentor in Booker T. I mean, you really couldn't ask for anybody better, who experienced, I'm sure, lots of different things going through the business at the time period that he did. So, man, sure. Super cool for you to really get to be under him. You've won championships all over the world. You were CZW champion, independent champion, a tag champion in WXW in Germany. Who was the first company that you really feel put themselves behind you?
It would have to be 01 in Japan. So at the time, I was already living in France, like I mentioned earlier. Cliff notes here, I was staying in like this hostel with a couple of other wrestlers. And this guy, he ended up wrestling for the Cruiserweight Classic named Ho Ho Lan. He's from China. He runs a company in Hong Kong, and we trained together periodically when he came through. And one day he offered me a booking, and he was like, "Would you like to come to Hong Kong?" And I was like, "Of course." And so he hooked up like training and stuff where I would like help teach guys in Taiwan and stuff. So I went over, and during the show in Hong Kong, the booker of 01 Japan was there, and the Japanese company was in the middle of their Fire Festival tour, which is like their heavyweight tournament. So I had the match with this young man named Jason New, who now works for Dragon Gate. He also did the Cruiserweight Classic for WWE. But we had our match, and after the match, Mr. Nakamura came to me and asked me, could I come to Japan? And so he ended up flying me from Hong Kong to Japan. That was my first tour with them. After that, I spent about a week, maybe 2 weeks with them at the time. And then he asked me if I wanted to come back. And of course, I said yes, so I ended up coming back. And that's when I was actually able to train under and get a chance to wrestle one of my favorite wrestlers, which is Kucho Hidaka from the 01 promotion. So that was a real treat for me. And that year, I think it was 2012, they pushed me into their junior heavyweight tournament final, to where I actually got a chance to wrestle with Hidaka, and I was able to be put forward to win the tournament. So at the time, they had given me like 4 junior titles at one time.
Oh.
So that was like the company that gave me my first big push, and got behind me really well. But I botched it, unfortunately.
In what way? Talk about that
You
a little
botched
bit.
it.
So at the time, 01, they weren't really doing well business-wise in 2012. So business was down. They were doing Cork and Hall, but they were like not selling out. So that was pretty much the biggest hall we would do. And then we would do like Shinkiba First Ring or stuff like that, which is like a smaller, more intimate hall, like 200 people. So I would come over, they would bring me over for like 2 weeks, but I would get to do like 2 main shows at Cork and Hall, and then maybe like a dojo show or something. So the other guys that were coming in were able to do other companies like Noah and Big Japan. And so me not being smartened up to how business works in Japan, I went to the office after like thinking it over a little bit to myself. And I go to the office and ask them if I can work for other companies while I'm over. And evidently this wasn't the way to do it, because as I was asking the question to like the main booker, who is not Nakamura, Nakamura was on the other side of the room on his computer doing his work as he always does. And I asked the question. And when I asked the question, Oki-san, the guy that is the booker, he makes like this really surprised sound, and he looks at me. And then Nakamura from behind his computer, I remember looking up at him. He looks from beyond his computer like this, and he goes, and then starts working again. The next trip that I got, I just slowly started losing all of the junior titles.
No.
And then, I just didn't get brought back. So that was how I botched that one. And later on, I learned that it's pretty much once they bring you over for like a visa, you are exclusively theirs, I guess, in their minds. So trying to work other places will have to be negotiated between the company asking for you, not me asking to work for the company. So, yeah.
Well, moving forward, Jonathan, it took you a few years to really get going in Ring of Honor. Was that a company you were always hoping to join?
Yeah, they changed the way that I thought, the presentation, the style of the wrestlers. I always watched WWE, Impact, and WCW when I was coming up, but I never looked at those places and told myself that I'm going to wrestle there. I can get there. I just enjoyed it. I know I wanted to be a wrestler. When I found out about the independence and wrestling overseas, pretty much that was my goal, to wrestle overseas.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.